Story 1. Ignore bullies and they will leave you alone. If you ignore them, one of two things will happen. Either they will bother you more or they will move on and bully someone else. If you stand up to bullies, they usually back down. The earlier you confront them, the less likely their behavior will become a lifelong habit. Story 2. Going too far on the find your dream job idea that it will never feel like work. It really messed me up when I was not excited about university assignments and thought I had to change degrees. Story 3. Teaching children not to question things simply because someone is older or claimed to be wiser is one of the most frustrating patterns I see daily. How are children supposed to develop individual, nuanced ideas if they cannot think for themselves? Story 4. Being wrong is unpleasant. That is why many people, when presented with trustworthy sources, do not change their minds because they do not want to be wrong. Story 5. People are discouraged from speaking up about illnesses because others act as if something is wrong with them. They say things like you need therapy. Therapy is not a bad idea and many people may benefit from it, but some portray it in a very negative light. Story 6. If he is mean to you, he likes you. It teaches little girls to expect violence from people who love them. Story 7. No is a bad word. It is a strong word, but not a bad one. Story 8. Nobody cares about issues affecting children and teens. People say it will only get worse, ask if you've ever paid a bill, or tell you that as a kid you cannot feel this way. This creates an emotional disconnect between parents and children and leaves kids feeling alone in their emotional struggles. As if no one cares because they are not adults and do not have adult problems. Story 9. There was one time my sister's Spanish teacher scolded her for using vocabulary that was not on the homework sheet. The task was to write a short essay introducing themselves in Spanish and use some simple adjectives. She asked me for help, and since I am older and know a decent amount of Spanish, I gave her a few interesting adjectives and verbs to use instead of bland words like nice or fun. She came home from school nearly in tears, shaking my head. Teachers are supposed to encourage learning, not hinder it. Story 10. All those toxic social media influencers who teach young people that it is all about money and brand names. Story 11. Children do learn about sex at a young age. It just isn't usually in a productive way. I know I did. Questions like this are why I believe in being infinitely clear with my kids. You are going to hear a lot of misinformation from other kids. If you hear something you do not understand, come talk to me. You can ask me anything and expect a decent answer. I would give examples of the nonsense I had heard as a kid, most of which implied pregnancy. My son was 6 and my daughter was 7. Riding home from school, my daughter said, "Tiffany said she had sex with my brother." That left me 3 minutes to gather my wits before we got home. I asked, "Do you know what sex is?" Blank looks. I said, "Sex is when two people take off their clothes and touch private parts together. You can make babies that way." They looked shocked and disgusted. I asked, "Do you think your brother had sex with Tiffany?" They said no. I thought Tiffany was using a poor way to say she liked him, and maybe she watches TV shows that imply people who like each other always have sex. Were my kids ready for a sex talk? No, not really. They did not care. Did we need to have one then? Yes. My job as a parent is to put things that come up into context for them, not to run around deciding later what and when they need to know things. Story 12. Probably not harmful, but in kindergarten we were prohibited from playing soccer because it was too dangerous. We would probably just stand there and kick the ball, not play like players in Fédération Internationale de Football Association matches. Edit. What the heck? Thanks for the upvotes, everyone. Story 13. Children are joining social media at a very young age. This is dangerous because it pressures them to measure their self-worth by social media success. Parents are far too open on social media about their children, which violates their privacy, and many parents will not admit this. Story 14. Teach children that it is not wrong to fail. Some need more time than others, and it is okay not to understand something immediately. Give children time to process information. A poor grade early in the year should not define them. Show children that learning is not about pass or fail but about trying and improving. Story 15. I think what we are not taught is more harmful. For example, the fact that we never learn, at least in my country, how to fact-check things. Story 16. Failure is not something to be feared. Failing should not be considered an obstacle but a step in the learning process. Demonizing failure and the stigma associated with it cause many children to lose interest after they fail. Story 17. No backtalk. Many adults use it to mean, you are not allowed to challenge what I have to say. That makes sense if a cranky toddler is negative for its own sake. But then older children are not allowed to question things or raise valid points of their own. Story 18. Complaining is the same as not being grateful. I cannot count the number of times, growing up, when adults told me to shut up whenever I complained about something and that I should be grateful I was born where I was. Sure, I am glad I was not born into a starving family in Africa, but that does not mean everything is perfect here or that we should not try to improve things as well. Story 19. You do not have to play with everyone when there is a lack of social accountability. If Laura is always cheating at tag, it is okay not to let her play. If little Billy throws sand in the sandbox, little Timmy does not have to play with him. Laura and Billy need to learn to play appropriately. Story 20. Show me respect first because I am an adult with authority. Then I will decide whether to show you respect. Story 21. How to internalize stress and implode as teenagers and adults. Story 22. Making children hug or kiss someone, usually a relative, when they are uncomfortable is inappropriate. The child may be grumpy or not want to show affection, or their warning sensors may be triggered and they may not know how to communicate that. Forcing them to hug or kiss sends mixed messages about personal and physical boundaries and about affection. Story 23. This happened to my son in middle school. Another student sucker punched him. My son fought back, pinned the other student against a wall because he has long arms, and punched him a few times. The school called my wife and me and said our son was suspended. When we went to the school, they told us that although multiple witnesses and the other students said he threw the first punch, the school had a zero-tolerance policy, so our son would be suspended. We asked what the school believed our son should have done, and they said he should have just walked away. We told them he would not receive any punishment at home and that the policy was unacceptable. Story 24. She is younger than you. Just let it go. Can't you be more compassionate? You're the older one in this situation. She is a little child. She does not know any better. I absolutely hate that this was drilled into me as a child. I think children under the age of 3 are an exception to this. I was referring to 5 to 12-year-olds who could get away with things because they were considered younger. Story 25. In a nasty divorce, the parents may only talk about each other's bad qualities. The children may have issues with their parents. Story 26. No telling tales or snitching. Many children who are abused or bullied will not come forward for that reason. Story 27. Children are too young to understand political views. They simply repeat their parents' thoughts. Story 28. They do not take responsibility for their mistakes and instead blame others. Story 29. We tell them the lie that life is fair and that things happen for benevolent reasons. Then we let them get burned and figure it out themselves. Story 30. Having a different opinion from someone else does not mean you hate them. That is wrong. Story 31. Doing the right thing will sometimes make others hate you. Be prepared for that. Story 32. Not everyone is a winner. Losing and disappointment are part of life and integral to emotional and social growth. Many people enter the real world having been told they deserve things without effort and cannot accept rejection or loss with any grace. This has led to mediocrity being accepted as the norm because few want to call out ineptitude, while the hard work and dedication of those who attain good positions are downplayed. Children must learn how to lose before they can truly learn to win. Only then will they be gracious in victory. Story 33. A zero-tolerance policy and fighting back when you are being beaten are not right. Also, do not hit girls in response. Story 34. Kids today are more aware of consequences and their digital footprint than any previous generation. Speaking specifically of middle and high school students, they are very aware that something can come back to harm them later in life. Some may see this as a positive step toward a more mindful generation, but I disagree. They have simply become better at hiding problematic behavior. To maintain a happy facade and limit their digital footprint, young people repress anything that might be perceived as off track. Story 35. I dislike hearing parents tell their children white lies to prevent them from doing something. Story 36. This is aimed at a high school level, but trade schools and learning a trade are often considered lesser options compared to a standard college degree. Trade schools and learning a skilled trade deserve as much emphasis as a college degree. Both college and trade school should be treated as serious investments. Young people should consider how long it will take to repay the cost of their education and whether the degree is worth the expense. This is especially important now, with earlier generations living and working longer. With more degree graduates, supply has increased while demand has not grown evenly across all fields. My first ever medal. Story 37. I had little exposure to electronics and then experienced severe overexposure to electronic devices. Things happened to me and now I cannot stop playing games. I am restricting myself now. Story 38. Good will win and evil will be punished. There is no karma. Some people will do all sorts of awful things and be successful and happy. Other people will do good and end up with cancer. Story 39. That you need to go to college instead of saying college is an option. Story 40. When people told me not to fight back, I always ignored them. I'm the youngest of 5. We were always taught to stand up for ourselves. One day I came home with a bloody nose and a black eye. When my parents asked what happened, I told them I had been beaten up. My parents said that if the boy who had beaten me up came near me again, I had their permission to defend myself. The next day he confronted me and wanted to fight. I defended myself and was suspended for a week. The teachers knew he was bullying me and did nothing because he was the principal's child. The moral of the story is to stand up for yourself and get help when someone is bullying you. Story 41. Little girls are often told that boys bully them because the boys like the girls. Story 42. You shouldn't hit a woman. Don't hit anyone unless it is self-defense. If my child is being hit by a woman and bullied, equal rights mean equal fights. Story 43. Finish your plate. Eat until you are full, not until the plate is empty. Story 44. It's okay to take your anger out on other people, and everyone should have social media and compare themselves to those who look better. Story 45. History taught from a single perspective is harmful. I am a history teacher, and I firmly believe one of the most damaging practices in schools is teaching history from a single Eurocentric perspective. That is not how history works, and it creates many problems for any person or group that does not share that perspective. Postscript. Teaching what I call great man history is almost as bad. History was made by more than presidents, inventors, and celebrities. Teaching only about one significant figure after another minimizes the contributions of almost the entire population that is not famous. Story 46. Bullies are only bullies because they feel insecure about themselves, and you should sympathize with them. Fuck that. If someone is being shitty to you, they do not deserve your sympathy. Story 47. You can be anything you want in life. Sorry, but this is not correct. Eddie, who cannot grasp basic division, is unlikely to become an astronaut. Story 48. Forcing children to finish everything on their plates is harmful. Even if they are full, they are required to finish their meal and may not leave the table until they do. Story 49. Children who are overprotected from the outside world have a hard time when they enter real life. Story 50. Do not tell them that the world outside your house is a scary and dangerous place. In the United States, it largely is not. Let them explore without fear. Story 51. Baby Shark. Not that it's inherently harmful, but given the chance, my 5-year-old would watch that song for 8 hours a day. What is it about those sharks? Do. Story 52. School is the only way to be successful, and college is a requirement. Story 53. Teach children to respect authority rather than to freely question everything. Story 54. The oxymorons that parents use and expect you to understand. Hey, Mom, do you need help with the dishes? No thanks, nerf herder. I will do it myself. He walks away. Oh, Now you are not going to help your mom? Do you not know how much I am going through? You are fucking grounded. You missed abortion. Story 55. In Pakistan, most girls are never taught any survival skills. My wife can spend 6 hours shopping for clothes but does not know anything about hardware or electrical work. Please teach girls to be self-sufficient. Teach them how to repair small things at home, at least. My wife can now repair electric sockets, extension cords, and so on. My nephew is a selfish child who will not let anyone play with his toys or share his food, but throws a tantrum if my niece will not share her things with him. I want to reprimand him, but his mother sometimes behaves like an entitled parent. I keep my distance and try to correct him when she is not around. Teach your children to be considerate but also to stand their ground when someone tries to take advantage of them. Story 56. Teaching children to feed ducks bread is harmful to ducks' digestion and nutrition. Story 57. It is not only about what is taught but how it is taught. For many children, lessons are presented as absolutes, such as boys do not cry and girls must behave like little princesses. These are optional behaviors and not the only right way to be. Girls can operate heavy machinery, and boys should be allowed to cry. In fact, crying is healthy. These examples are simplified for clarity. Seen from another perspective, a lecture given by a teacher who is 60 years old and has not had training in modern teaching methods, standing in front of 30 14-year-olds to teach mathematics, is not effective. Having girls and boys together in one classroom is already distracting at this age, and even a window can seem more interesting. I am not the person to offer the perfect solution, but I believe the current approach is not ideal. Story 58. It teaches children that they do not have bodily autonomy. Simple things like telling a child to give an aunt or uncle a hug or kiss when the child has refused teach them that their body is not theirs. If a child refuses to give someone a hug, that is their decision. An adult should be able to accept that. Story 59. Social acceptance. I feel that I was robbed of much innocence in my childhood. Not only because my stepfather was abusive, but because I have been bullied all my life. From a young age, I realized that I would never fit in because I was different. To this day, I cannot put my finger on what is different about me, but now that I am 14, I am starting not to care and not to let it affect me as much as it did when I was about 6. Bullying is not okay. I have been in the head teacher's office many times because of bullying, but nothing has ever been done. The worst recent thing they did that actually hurt me was film me having a panic attack and trigger me during it. They allegedly posted it on TikTok. They told me they were doing that, and many other people knew about it the next day. I hope that in 20 years bullying will be less common, but I fear it will never completely disappear. Story 60. Telling children they are special and unique compared to everyone else can be harmful. I am not saying to destroy a child's self-esteem, but the longer that bubble remains unpopped, the harder it is for them to accept that they are probably just as average as the other 7 billion people. Children need to experience failure and disappointment before they become adults. Story 61. They do not have to be personally responsible for their actions, and blame can always be shifted to some societal ill. Story 62. They tell you that you can be anything you want when you grow up. I know you need to encourage children, but that's a lie, and it really hurts when you figure it out. Story 63. Abstinence-only sex education highlights what students are not being taught. Proper sex education is important. For anyone interested, I posted a John Oliver segment on America's sex education system. It is very informative and quite funny. I did not expect this comment to get so much attention. Story 64. We have athletes graduating from college who cannot read. Should they play professional sports? Story 65. Respect for your elders must be deserved, not expected. Also, the argument that I put a roof over your head and fed you is not persuasive. Congratulations. You have done the bare minimum that is legally required of a parent. You chose this for yourself when you decided to give birth to another person. Story 66. Always aim for a high grade. I got a B instead of an A, but you did not need to break my laptop. Other comments covered everything I wanted to say. I respect my country, but if I could choose, I would not be part of it. Story 67. He's being mean to you because he likes you. No, Patricia, he's being mean to me because he's a fucking asshat. Story 68. Giving children everything they want without requiring them to work for it. Telling children that their problems will magically disappear over time without any effort on their part. Story 69. This is specifically about boys. It says men do not cry, show joy, or give their children a lot of love. I say no. I am going to shower my children with love. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.